And welcome everybody to another week here at the PCS Spring Playoffs for 2022. We are getting into the home stretch, and for tonight, we have ourselves the winners finals. PSG Talon, the top seeded team, taking on number 3 CFO, who are red hot themselves. Hey everybody, I'm Pyrotechnics, joined by Clement Chu on this broadcast today, and I would like to take a moment before we get things all started to thank our wonderful sponsors, of course, on the split, CTBC Bank and Caliber. Thank you for making the PCS possible. Also, a big old shout out to our broadcast partners, Carry Live, Riot Games, and Garena for making it all happen. Now, Clement, this is a Clash of the Titans. This is a big one tonight. PSG Talon are still on top of the league, but CFO are climbing right back in, and they were the last team to hand these guys a loss. As we look at the playoff bracket so far, it's been 3-0 as far as the eye can see, but for a few.
PSG had a 13-game win streak before CFO came in and snatched that one away. Afterwards, CFO have found their fortunes. They haven't lost since then, and they've been doing incredibly well in the playoffs. This is going to be the first match for both of these teams where they are not expected to just straight out win all 3 lanes at the same time. This is where the real test lies. This is where compositions actually start to matter for both of them, and in my predictions, this is what the finals is going to look like as well. So I have extremely high hopes for both of these teams, and I do think we have a repeat match later on.
It is very possible, no matter who goes out in this one. And we have to think what happened last split as well. I know it was some time ago, but back in spring, it was Megabank Beyond Gaming that was in the same position CFO find themselves in right now. And it did go back-to-back 5-game series. PSG, of course, eventually emerged victorious to be the number 1 seed at Worlds last year. But this time around, things are looking a little bit different. PSG, with their new mid-jungle combo, they have not been quite as dominant as the side of River and Maple was. But that's not necessarily the reason that I think PSG have had, not struggles, but certainly challenge from a few other squads. CFO definitely making themselves look like, I think, the most impressive iteration of the J-Team universe that I think we could have had. I mean, J-Team themselves still in this, Deep Cross still in this. It's still an exciting time if you are a fan of the players that have gone through the hallowed halls of J-Team. But we'll have to see who emerges victorious out of that contention. And PSG tonight looking to once again make their mark on history.
I think if you compare these two teams, on CFO's side, you have our most talented squad out of all of them. Their solo laners in Rest and Mission, I think, are flat out just the best that you can get. On the other hand, for PSG, it's about cohesiveness. Yes, they have a very high talent level as well, but I actually don't think their mid-jungle is as strong as CFO's. However, if you look at the team fights, you look at the 5v5s, they just outright smash everyone else in the PCS. They know how to take objectives. They're very slow and measured, but when they go, it's just like a click of a finger. They're all going in together. They have the best and cleanest engages that we have ever seen, and that's where they're really dominant at.
And they pick the moments and places on the map to take the fights that other teams just don't seem to have the sense for, at least not to the same level. And this squad, there's a reason they still are on top of the heap. Hanabi in the top side, Juhan, Bay in the mid and jungle, then Unify and Kaiwing rounding it all out. We heard from them last week. Kaiwing in the post-match interview talked about, hey, you know, at CFO, we definitely think they are a very strong team. Even called them, maybe tongue-in-cheek, the T1 of the PCS. They certainly have talent in just about every single role, but will their weeks of preparation leading up to this moment only had to have one match so far. It was a 3-0 against the side of Deep Cross Gaming last week. Will it be enough to turn things against CFO, the team that were able to hand them one of their few losses on the split? It was in the mid and jungle that CFO were able to attack. Mission opening up on his Galio really put Bay behind.
Got a straight up solo kill right there, and this is why I think CTBC should be looking for a more early game oriented sort of style. I feel like their best composition might be the 4-1 comp, a comp where you really want to stall out and put most of your eggs into the rest basket, but traditionally that's not how playing up against PSG has worked for them. In terms of the late game, there's still a lot of 5v5s, and Hanabi honestly just doesn't fall to rest. Hanabi's one of those top laners that is immune to the BM of rest, is immune to the assaults that rest throws at him. So that leaves a very different angle for CFO. And I honestly do question if they can switch up gears, because what we've seen from their previous series is that, hey, Mission can simply play Galio, he can simply play Victor, and he will still win the lane against most of his opponents. But against Bei and Juhan, I feel like they have to search for something a little bit faster, because their chances in the straight up late game, if they run into the 5v5, are much less compared to their other opponents.
Maybe the Ahri starts to come in on the CFO side. So far, Mission has kind of rejected the more recent trends of the meta and gone for his own all the same. Mission's definitely somebody that likes what he likes, and he can't really take it away from him, with Orianna and Galio having been his most played champions on the split so far. Hasn't picked up that Ahri yet, but there is plenty of time to see if things change. I think there is a lot of opportunities to attack. I mean, the mid lane is definitely one to focus. How about the top lane, though, too? Because you talked about how Rest, of course, is the BM king. He's also very mechanically proficient and likes to go for the 1v1. But Hanabi, he plays weak side, he plays strong side, he plays every side. And I do feel like it is certainly hard to challenge him, especially not without help. Taking a look at what they've done in the playoffs so far, really not a lot of shared champion pool in this side of the postseason, although we have seen a few things even out in the regular season.
The thing about Hanabi is that he's actually willing to go into counter picks and still go with more team-oriented champions like the Gangplank and like the Gnar, and still come out ahead in lane. We saw that against Leaky. All 3 games, Hanabi dominated the matchup. So I don't expect Rest to actually get a solid lead in the top lane, and that has been the go-to strategy for CFO. On the other side, I think that the point that has been winning the most for PSG has been their bottom side. Even in the match where they lost to CFO, their bottom lane was still dominating between Unified and Kaiwing. I think the 2v2 is what they're going to rely on most, and most likely you are going to see PSG default to blue side, go for team fight and late game strategies, while CFO are the ones that are going to have to mix things up a little bit. 2 picks that everyone has been asking from Mission is, can he actually play the Ahri? Can he play the LeBlanc? Those are your 2 most notable tempo picks, and if you don't have them, it might be hard to accelerate yourself.
Well, we won't get to see the Ahri this game as CFO do ban it, but it's a lot of mid lane focus. The Syndra, the Galio off the board by CFO, or by PSG rather, and they've also banned out Jinx blue side. This is interesting here, as clearly respecting the prowess of Shun, who came in on that same week to the roster that CFO did hand PSG one of their few losses. Lee Sin, now removed from Juhan, one of his most played champions.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I do see Lee Sin as probably the best early game neutralizer in terms of jungle. Like, if the opponent is running something like a Viego, which is probably the most played in terms of a carry jungle this patch, then Lee Sin can really shut that down. So I think it does leave CFO open to go for some of these carry junglers that you might not expect here. That being said, they default towards the Volley Bear, which I think is also very, very strong, but it does tend to be more of like a team fight pick, where you can use his innate tankiness and also the bottom lane dive to make use of it. So I wonder if we are going to see the Misfortune here. That would be a champion that we have seen being played in the LPL. You could push your lane against the Xayah and then dive with the Volley Bear very easily to flip the bot side matchup.
Something we've seen attempted here in the PCS as well, not at a ton of success in some of the less balanced matchups here in the playoffs, but I do think if there's somebody that should be able to feel confident at it, should be Shun. PSG, though, they do opt initially for the Xayah, kind of almost daring to see the Aphelios matchup on the other side, but it's not something that Shun's really played more for, and as the Recon is taken away by CFO, we see the Nautilus coming in, PSG for their side. What will they
Base
lock
trolling.
next? A lot of hovers. Yeah, Bay's having a little bit of fun with it. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Rise come in once again. It is his most played champion. He kind of likes to default on it. He gives himself a lot of pressure, but it is worth keeping in mind the last time these 2 teams faced, Bay was on the losing side of the matchup. That might be why the Galio's off the table.
Yeah, there's not a lot of weakness overall in the Rise pick. It's very hard to completely shut him down. I would say Orianna is probably the most likely go-to pick for Mission in this matchup. But so far from PSG's draft, I think this is very interesting. They're not necessarily going for what we standard consider from a blue side draft, which is you want to have a very strong and focused team fight composition, because most of your lanes are going to get countered. PSG are actually going on a completely different track from your normal blue side draft, and they're just making sure that none of their lanes are actually failable. It's kind of hard to dive in Nautilus. Xayah is probably your strongest matchup you're going to find in the bottom side as well, so a bit of a takeaway pick from Xun, and I think this is definitely a doable strategy for PSG. They don't necessarily need to win out in the early game. All they need to do is make sure CFO don't win. And when it comes to the late game, I think their team cohesion will just take them straight to a victory. So it seems like that is kind of the compromise draft that they're going for. While on CFO's side, this is getting fairly interesting here. There's a lot of dive potential coming from the bottom side. I do expect to see something that might be able to join Volibear in that dive here. But the pick that's going to come out against the Rise is going to be absolutely critical. And I like PSG's attempts here. I said Orianna might be the most obvious go-to, but it looks like CFO want to leave lane. So banning the Zoe is a good choice.
I think the Corki's probably next on the tier list for Mission, unless he's been preparing something a little bit different. We'll have to see as they focus their attention on the jungle as well. Juhan has played a number of those Viego games, and pop-up potential is always something to worry about right now, trying to neutralize some of the more hyper-carrying damage threats into the late game. Also, dive potential. The Nocturne is removed as they continue to chip away at that pool. What does this leave here, Clement? I'm thinking of things like the Jarvan. The Hecarim is still up.
I think the Hecarim is probably the most standard answer. PSG's biggest strength is in the team fight anyway, so I do expect that one to be kind of their go-to in this draft. I feel like Volibear does have a lot more early game presence compared to the Hecarim, but it's definitely still a strong pick. And the Jarvan, for me, I think a little less viable. The Jarvan does have that sort of long-range engage, but I don't see PSG's composition really going that far into trying to hard engage on CFO. So most likely Hecarim will be the answer right here. While CFO, we'll find out their pick. The Corki or the Orianna is most likely answer here, but it should be the mid lane.
Yeah, so last second, that is going to be the lock-in. Mission continues to stick to his standard. This is a pretty beastly team fight, you got to think, but at the same time, PSG's strategy of making sure that their lanes aren't going to be set too far behind early does neutralize one of the big strengths of CFO.
I do think PSG actually get outflanked here by their own draft. They went a little bit... honestly, these picks are strong, but they're all in different sort of directions. And CFO actually are the ones on the red side that not only come out with some lane advantages in the mid lane, but also a more cohesive composition. This is a comp where it's going to be very hard to actually touch any of the carries. They have a lot of disengage of potential with the shockwave and with the quickness, which even though it's a great engage, a lot of times it can be used as counter engage as well, as you just run through people that are trying to dive your comp. So PSG, in this sense, if you look at their late game, they don't have the better carries in this matchup. So it does become a little bit awkward for them. And what that means is that their front line has to bear more of the load of outplaying the enemy team. We'll see how that one works out. But here is the interesting part for CFO. CFO might not even try to go in the 5v5. They could still stick to their guns and go for the 4-1 strategy, which... I talked about this a lot in the pregame. I don't expect the 4-1 to work against Hanabi, but Rest is going to try.
I don't know. He's going to try. And I mean, hey, look, these are like two of the most iconic champions for these players in this season. I have said multiple times that Hanabi is the only person in the PCS who should be allowed to blind Gnar because he just plays every matchup fine. That is fair and true. But Rest has also gotten so many games on Graves. He looks like an absolute monster. They're going to go for the 4-1 anyways. Clement, they've got the chance to dive down Gemini. I want to see how active he can be on this Volibear in the early game, because I do think that is going to make a lot of the difference in these side lanes.
Exactly. The Volibear pre-level 6, I think, much stronger than the Hecarim here. And we have seen this top lane Graves matchup. It can be very swingy. He typically does build sustain, so it means if he's ahead, he continues to stay ahead. If he's behind, the sustain doesn't actually help you that much because you can't take the trades anyway. So that's a matchup where I do expect CFO will have to hard focus on. If you look at the rest of their lanes, they're not really high maintenance lanes. Like, you're likely going to get pushed into the bot lane, and Mission should be okay on himself. So a lot of attention heading into the top side. But the swap up does, I think, does complicate the calculations late game for me. I felt like CFO actually had a very strong comp where they could have just went for something even like the Malphite and just be completely okay with the way the draft ended up. But this time around, I feel like I feel like they do throw themselves another question of the 5v5 and do make it more their victory is more hinged upon the success of Rest than perhaps I would like to see.
Yeah, it's a little riskier, but I do think it is on brand for what Rest is going to try and do. So this early game is going to be very important, as are most in the CFO matchups. But it is worth reminding everybody what this series means as we are getting onto the Rift for game number 1. This is for a ticket to the grand finals of the PCS Spring Split. The loser will have another chance as they drop down into the bottom side of the bracket. Potential rematch in the finals could still be awaiting them, but all the same, very important to get that spot in the finals, looking to go forward to MSI. In the beginning, we see Qual and Kaiwing just poking each other out a little bit on that early roam, but just a few love taps, no full concerted engages. In our best of fives, we usually see the level 1s in game 1 being a little bit more standard. The crazy stuff comes later.
Yeah, you really want to see where this Hecarim is going to start. Typically, Hecarims do like their blue starts a lot because they can pull the SOFM, get 2 camps at once. So, CFO wanted to see if they were going to start the blue side or going to start the red side. If they start on the blue side, that means Rest can push a bit harder here into the top. And PSG still going for somewhat of a late
Okay.
here. This
I spoke too soon here. They really want to get the play.
Yeah, I think this is more of a counter play here. So if CFO do manage to, or do try to poke their heads in, because they want to spot out this Hecarim, then they might be able to catch him red-handed. It doesn't happen. CFO play a very standard start. And meanwhile, on the top side, I do think Rest actually spotted out this Hecarim start by himself, so they should know where the jungle is going.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we are underway, and that's going to be the 2v2. Started off early at Kaiwing getting the quick dredge line in, but as you mentioned, this is a lane that should get pushed in, but should have the opportunity to at least stay safe. One matchup that I am really excited for in this whole series is going to be that of Unified versus Shun, because it's very much our top 280 carries in a lot of ways, but Shun kind of just came in and disrupted the entire scene in Week 5. We didn't know what to expect from this guy, because up until that point, CFO seemed perfectly content to be running Atlan, but like the missing piece of the jigsaw puzzle, Shun kind of leveled up this entire squad by giving a much more aggressive killer instinct side to the bottom lane, and honestly, it almost feels like kind of a 2022 doggo.
It definitely does feel that way. He's so much better in team fights. We do have a gank coming in very early on, though. Gemini. Let's see if it works.
All right, Force is Bay to flash away, and the command attack distance is actually going to get some damage done, but Gemini steps a little too far forward, gets put in Rune Prison. So Bay's out, but early flash burned. Advantage CFO. I want to see where the bear goes next.
That's really nicely done, and this leaves Bay in such a bad position. You really want to gank the Rise early on so he can't just run into a very smooth Tear of the Goddess build into TP here. And this gets super awkward for Bay because his wave might just stick around in a bad position, and it will allow Mission to kind of freeze and get a little bit more off here. So at 18 CS, he should still have the Tear, but this TP is a bit of an awkward TP coming in for Bay. We'll see how he plays this one. I'm not 100% sure about the lane state, but it does look possible that it might just be frozen in place, and that's going to be very dangerous for a Rise without the flash here. So I do expect that he will have to call Juhan here to kind of fix his wave.
And this is exactly what CFO did last time to PSG, is try to attack that mid lane and really get the plays off. A few unforced errors as well did give early edges to CFO, but that game still ended up going pretty late. The 5v5s were a lot closer than the gold game would have expected. Meanwhile, though, we got to check up in the top side. Hanabi having no trouble against Rest so far in this 1v1, so you have to think that without jungler intervention, that may stay the same. But what's this? Juhan.
Juhan doesn't win this.
He's going to face check right into Gemini. Actually starts by sweeping through it, and this is actually a good 1v1 right now. Gemini, I don't think he was watching the map. He might have been shopping.
Yeah. Juhan actually gets a lot of free damage in just with the first auto attack and the Q here. Gemini definitely caught window shopping, and he could just go down here.
Yeah, he's got no flash. That's first blood, and oh my goodness. Juhan is right on top of Rest, who also didn't really see this one coming, but he will turn it around with shotgun. That is PSG finding the unforced error.
Yeah, that was definitely a bit of a weird exchange right there. I feel like in most instances, Volibear with PTA is not really that afraid of the Hecarim, but Hecarim just got so much free damage off on him. You know, just goes in with the, starts the Decimate off, gets the auto attack, and he was also running the red buff in there as well. And they were also coming in with the Bay on the teleport timing. So Bay was a little bit more pushed up, and very surprised that they're able to find that. And that's the biggest weakness of PSG against CFO in their previous matchup just gone now. Like, in the previous time, it was Bay falling behind in the 1v1 versus Mission. That's not likely to happen in this matchup anymore.
Yeah, that was huge right now. And just considering even nameplates, right? I mean, Juhan is a newcomer into this league, having been picked up from NS Red Force over in Korea. Gemini is a mainstay. He's a very experienced veteran player. We don't see mistakes like that out of him usually.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be interesting to see how that one ends up. And if you look at the vision, that's also very detrimental to the top lane coming in for rest, because he's basically lost control of his topside jungle. He doesn't know where the Hecarim necessarily is. Of course, now he does. But, you know, he has to assume that sometimes this Hecarim is going to be in his top because the wards are there already. And that just means he can't push the matchup and get that advantage that Graves needs so much. In terms of team fights, you know, I'd still take the Gnar over the Graves in most situations. Unless the Graves is massively fed, he's not going to have the same impact.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is a risky strategy. They did want to play it to try and get the advantage, but they haven't really been able to do much now. Gemini being settled behind will try to set up for a dive, but he doesn't have access to his ultimate just yet, so this is pretty risky. In fact, nobody does at the moment. Koala is going to go in and actually get the knock-up onto Unified. They'll root down Kaiwing, but this is very dangerous as Koala already goes down. I don't think Gemini was on the same page as the rest of his bot lane.
Yeah, that was a little bit weird. I feel like Koala went in, and both his AD and jungler were surprised by the outcome. Now Kaiwing has an easy dredge line if he wants it. Oh!
And he takes it in. Woo! Forcing the flash out of Shun. This is huge. Maybe they can try to turn the 2v2, but no. Unified and Kaiwing flexing.
That was interesting because CFO had full vision advantage, and they also engaged first, but they came out worse for wear. So I'm not sure what to make of it. That was just straight up a 2v3 that PSG won, and now they also get to clinch down onto the top side as well. So massive coordination issues coming out for CFO.
Yeah, that's going to be the big devastating charge, and they will even bring Bay to the party on the portal, and Hanabi with the Gnar shove into the wall is able to get the kill. This will open up the Dragon opportunity, but PSG are just running this early game.
That's what we were talking about in the pregame. CFO, they might have the better individual pieces, but in terms of coordination, PSG are just on a completely different level right here. The top lane is in such a bad position. The bot lane is also, I'm not sure how they're going to survive. They're at a very awkward back against the serrated Dirk plus the Vampiric Scepter right now. And the only place that they're winning is CFO and Mission. So we'll see what they make of it, but this early game is definitely not what CFO fans wanted to see.
I mean, what do you do if you're CFO right now? Like, do you opt for something crazy like lane swapping, just sacking Rest? I mean, he's such a big part of what the draft strategy called for. It feels like they don't really have a way to get him back on the board.
They need a hard force a win on top lane. Like, that's their only win condition. This is not a matchup where Graves naturally scales into a win like the Fiora or the Camille. So I expect Gemini to have to move top lane once he's level 6, try to find some kills here. But there's so many levels he has to go through to do that. There's a lot of wards in his topside jungle. There's even a pink on top of his Krugs. And he's also losing the 1v1 jungle matchup at this point. Like, Juhan has a level advantage. So they can only make the first move once they know that Hecarim is on the other side of the map.
Yeah, that's going to be tough, as it's very situational. And Juhan, I mean, knowing this, like, sure, he's going to go down to clear his camps. They do have a ward over by the red pit, so there will be some indicator here. But let's keep a look at what's going on down bottom. Kaiwing goes in. A little bit of hopeful dredge line, doesn't find anything, but Unified and Kaiwing continue to be able to keep this push going. They're pretty happy with how the lane state is as well, and Gemini's actually going to show in mid here, completely open and spotted, so Hanabi can keep having his way with Rest up top.
Yeah, if you look at this top lane build, it's very interesting. You already see Hanabi, who has control of the wave, going straight for the Hullbreaker. While Rest on the other side, because he needs that late game win condition, he's going for the cull instead here. So the mentality and the builds, both of them are pretty non-standard, but you can tell right now that Rest actually is in a lot of trouble. He's already conceded the lane. He knows that he can't win with that that kill deficit coming in, and also the hull breaker as the first item for Hanabi. So CFO are basically looking at the super long Kong at this point. They need the call to work out for them.
Oh, wait a minute, though. Here's Juan. Here's Kaiwing. They're looking to set up on the collapse. This is spotted, but the question is, can they do something about it? There we go. On two fronts as Kaiwing gets the knockup and into the Oriana Shockwave. Is he going to be able to walk away? Mission does. They actually turn it around by bringing way more friends than PSG had. One kill.
What a beautiful flash from Mission. He gets away from so much damage, but Shun puts himself in danger, though.
Oh, Kaiwing, he might have gotten baited in this, although the Flash forward Unified is going to be able to get the outplay on the back half of this one. However, a little bit low health bars. Maybe they can finish it around. Gemini getting a lot of gold in his pocket here as Kaiwing is heading for the hills. Here comes Mission to try and cut off Unified. And the great Xayah chase of 2022 commences.
He does have a heal, so I do expect him to be able to walk away from this one. But the speed up is coming. Let's see the stun.
All right, Gemini, trying to walk forward. No, there's the root on the blade collar, still going. Sky Splitter, he's got him. 1, 2, needs one more hit, and I think Gemini is going to get the shutdown.
What a beautiful play from Mission right here. He drops the ball on the ground, flashes away, keeps himself alive, and then gets the, I believe that was a triple on the Shockwave right there. Caught a lot of people, even had his tower shot coming in range, and this is a massive win for CFO. This is sort of what happened last time as well. CFO do have the stronger mid lane.
And Mission is just proving why these champions, these Oriana picks, the Gallia, what he can really do on these champions. It's just kind of beyond what you figure in the standard matchup. Let's take a look at the play again, because it was PSG closing the trap. Keep your eyes on Mission here. He's got enough mana for the Shockwave. He gets cut off, and then as soon as everybody jumps into him, they get the two-man, and into the Gemini bear drop. That was a beautifully coordinated strike.
Yeah, Mission... well, goodbye, Sean.
Oh boy! They're gonna get some revenge. Nicely done. Bay and Kaiwing double up. Really good dredge lines again for Kaiwing. But look what's happening mid lane. We're gonna see Mission picking up plates.
Yeah, that was a bit of a weird sequence coming in from Shun right there. He even used both of his summoners. Koala just tapping some damage. I like that play, you know, get as much as you possibly can. But the bot lane is just such a weird move from Shun. Unforced errors again from CFO. And we could see Unify just running away with this already. He's got the Mythic complete. If he can push this one down, they also have the, that's what I wanted to say, the Herald there as well. So PSG, they've had some turbulence, but if they just swap their lanes around, they have two very strong winning lanes. And that means that Rest is going to have to force to come out and play against this Nard that's ahead without a tower.
Yeah, that's going to be a little tough as things go on. I do think that Shun is going to have to be one of the late game win conditions as well, though, right? Because he did opt into this losing matchup, but as the game goes on, Aphelios, one of our standard hyper carries with Jinx being banned away, he goes onto this champion he's a little bit less familiar with as far as the stage games go, at the very least. But Unified going to be relying on his ability to team fight it out with this Xayah. Tower gets knocked down. That's first brick. Here comes Juhan wrapping around the side, but CFO are going to cover their bases a little bit more. A lot of vision invested in this jungle to stop PSG from outflanking them again.
And I think what CFO have to do is get Mission into these fights. Here we go.
Oh, okay, that's only going to pull in one. Oh, he gets yoinked right on back, and a little bit of a late response here. Can Koala and Gemini find a return kill? The answer's no.
This time around, Mission doesn't have his flash, and I don't think the Shockwave actually managed to get the crowd control down. Juan, holding on to his onslaught of Shadow, was able to negate that, so they just rushed down a kill, even though they were walking through pure vision on the side of CFO. Very nicely done by PSG, and they find the hook!
Oh, Koala, that was blind into the bushes. Well done there, as Kaiwing finds it. Unified claiming the kill. Just beautiful game sense, and it'll open up the Hextech Drake as well. PSG, after a little bit of a mistake in the mid and saved fight by Mission, they come roaring right back.
This is always what happens in PSG games. The rest of the map, They can make mistakes, but when it comes to Kaiwing and Unified, they're just always there to pick up the slack. So PSG once again dominate the bottom side. This is a 3-1 lead already. Gemini trying to do some cheeky stops, and they will get Kaiwing on that one. So nicely done on his part for that. Does buy a lot of time to open up on this mid. But the next thing that they have to worry about is this rotation from the bottom side. I do expect them to just swap Unified and have him sit on top of Rest. If Xayah goes into that matchup, Zaya's going to have superior range against Rest, and with the item advantage, should be able to just push him in as well. So it makes Rest's job as a 4-1 point that much more difficult to hold on. I think for CFO, they really need the most out of this Rakan to kind of put the edge back.
Ooh, Gemini actually gets caught, pulling a little too far forward, and he's going to be forced to Stormbringer into the Dragon Pit, but look who's come to cut him off. Flashes, tries for the jukes, but oh dear, he went way too deep into the wrong territory. Now Juhan trying to outplay him 1v1, this is actually getting turned around as PSG didn't really realize how fast he can actually go. He might be able to do this, but he's got friends coming. He gets the 1v1. Mistakes on both sides.
Oh, that was so hilarious. Juhan thought he could do it by himself, but he forgot about how damaging the W is from the Volibear. He's able to get the sustain off and get the second proc off. So that just, it's so hilarious because it gives Rest so much to claw back. Koala?
Okay, wow, he's actually going to be able to get away with the quickness. All right, so this opens up a little bit more map movement, right? Just a lot of little mistakes being capitalized on left and right. Rest should be able to knock down this tower, not on this wave. Well, with Bay here, it's going to be a little harder, but he's gotten a bit of a breather, and man, I think we're seeing stage jitters by both these squads, Clement.
Yeah, very interesting plays by both sides. I just think Juhan, in that specific moment, was probably shouting his lungs out in Korean, and the rest of his teammates were just like, I don't understand, what is this guy saying? And they just kind of walked their own ways, leaving him to the maws of the bear. So a little bit unfortunate for Juhan right there. And I do think, again, as you've said, the biggest winner likely going to be Rest out of that. Ooh, Hanabi!
Oh dear, Mission. I don't think he expected Hanabi to be right there. However, he is going to Shockwave, keep this 1v1 going if he can actually hold Hanabi in this lane. But the flash forward, he's going to try to run for the hills. Dodges out the boulder toss. Gemini coming in for backup a little too late. And Hanabi just continuing to be a terror. Now on these side lanes, Hullbreaker, of course, in his pocket. That's going to open up the opportunity for the Herald drop in mid. Unified and Juhan should be able to fire this one down without too much trouble.
Yeah, CFO look like they're not going to contest on the tier 1 at the very least. Just going to let that one go down. And we are going to move into a Mountain Soul this game. So I think this one's actually very useful for both of these teams. You do expect them to entertain the 5v5 quite often. I think both of these teams have that capability. So just preserving the front line is going to be very good for both of them. On the flip side here, we do have something developing, which is Bay now sitting at 3-1-3. We were talking about Nar shutting down the Grays, but I think Bay might have the potential to do the same as well, especially with his second item going into the Thimblewinter.
Yeah, Bay's going to be pretty tanky, and if he can get the front line and get those Rune Prisons down and just overload cycle like over and over again, it's going to be a little hard for CFO to really take him out of this one. And obviously Hanabi's just going to continue to be a thorn in the side of anybody who deals with him. He's actually moving forward on his build. The Hearthbound Axe is already complete, and that means it looks like he's going for a wit's end.
I think it's Triforce for now. Just
to
finish off that Mythic first off. Yeah, it's really weird. We don't see this much, but goodbye, Shun. The second time he gets caught out.
It is worrying to see Shun just getting blown up over and over again. That is cause for concern.
Yeah, and we have to remember that he is just a rookie. He's only played against PSG and Unified once in his entire career. Koala shedding some tears for his fallen AD carry, and now they're going to get pinched down. So CFO just, I'll be honest, I feel like this game CFO has just made so many individual mistakes where they get caught out by PSG. And props to PSG, they're able to punish so beautifully with Bay just closing the trap. And out of nowhere, even though Bay wasn't doing so hot in lane, he has been able to pick up 7 takedowns, and he has a 400 gold bounty on him. He's the most fed member on the team at this point.
Yeah, that's a little bit tough for them to be dealing with. Bay is just in the right place at the right time. I mean, a few mistakes made by some of the individual players of PSG, but as you pointed out at the start, the big difference between these two teams is while CFO have individually some of the most skilled players in the league, PSG just have the best cohesion overall. And they just picked the right moves on the map. This is going to be Hanabi and Juhan comboing up to finish off the first Mountain Drake, building their Drake stack. Obviously, it got a little bit delayed because CFO picked up the first Dragon. That was the Ocean. Ooh, nice double root down there. And they're just going to keep locking Flying Oyster out. And yeah, we're definitely seeing some mistakes that I don't think we were used to in the regular season or even in the earlier stages of playoffs. Like Shun, this is a man that's not used to losing, Clement. He's only lost one stage game since coming in for this squad.
Yeah, he's done incredibly well, a lot of it in that teamfight situation. But I think one of the weaknesses of CFO is a lot of times they haven't been able to keep Shun alive. When we've seen the teamfights, they're still much more focused on deleting the enemy backline rather than protecting their own. They're just not very used to playing with the hyper carry. So we'll see if that still is the case here for Shun at this point, because he is so far behind. We do see him going for more of just like the... I think he's probably going to go for a Bloodthirster here, just for a little bit more survivability. There is a lot of die potential, and with how fed Gnar actually is right now, he probably needs that just to stretch out the fights a little bit more. I do expect PSG in the next couple of fights to have a dominating advantage. You know, they are at about 5,000 gold. Their front line is incredibly beefy at this point. So if PSG just run the next couple of fights front to back, CFO are going to find it very difficult to match.
And they opted into this, right? They could have gone for the more team fight focus, but they gave Rest champion to 1v1. He never really had the opportunity as he just got outplayed early on. And, well, they are now paying for their hubris in game one here. Koala looks for an opportunity, can't quite find it, but he is nice and safe, slipping out on that battle dance. And keeping Rest on the side lanes, teleport at the ready should he need it. But PSG, as you mentioned, looking a lot stronger. Rest runs face first into the Gnar. Triforce completed, as you were saying. This is going to be very hard for him to fight it out.
Yeah, and PSG do have the opportunity just to push CFO in and then instantly TP back to the Baron. So they have to be very much aware of that play. I call it the Birgerson because I feel like he's the best player that's done this play or really pioneered it. So CFO, they have to keep vision around the Baron. I do see that they're swapping over to a lot of trinkets here. You see even the Graves is going for the trinket at this point just to make sure that they can always intercept if the Realm Warp goes directly for the Purple Worm.
Yeah, trying to make sure PSG don't get a blind advantage, and as they lose out on a lot of their jungle right now, it's going to start getting a little bit dark. I do see a couple of lane wards placed down if they wanted to have a teleport opportunity for mission arrest. Juhan is actually going to start up on the Baron, but that was just, I think, a ward clearing maneuver. So down in the dark they go. It's going to mean Gemini and Koala have to go on a roam to try and drop that one back in. Always a little bit dangerous.
No, I think for PSG, it's very easy to play out this game plan. You just continue to constrict onto the top side, and then you can use Realm Warp to instantly get your team directly into the mid lane for a free tower, or even for a free Baron if CFO back out enough. So there's plenty of ways for them to play it. And for CFO, the question becomes, can they actually sneak out something on the other side of the map? If PSG is going to invest heavily into the red side, can they perhaps get a chance to go into the Drake side where they can set up vision without PSG catching them out on it? That's probably CFO's best plan to get back. I don't see them really having the burst potential right now to catch PSG out. And for that matter, PSG is usually very careful about these maneuvers as well. So I do want to see CFO try a little bit to go for the Drake, just try to stretch PSG or force them to rotate across the map so some more vision blind spots do open up for themselves.
Yeah, and they're finding out that they have been pretty much spotted out by PSG pretty consistently, not able to really push them out of the jungle as they just kind of own that side around the back of Baron Pit. 23, almost 24 minutes on the clock, that gold lead. PSG still at about 5,500, looking to grow here as they just try to take more and more of the map away. But PSG are happy with this game state. As you said, they have pretty decent scaling. They have decent fight potential. Obviously, like, you know, the Orianna Aphelios combo is going to get really, really problematic for them as the game does go on. But the 5v5 they feel pretty confident in, and Juhan can set these fights up even more efficiently now. Dead Man's play completed. Going to be an extremely speedy horse at the races.
Oh yeah, he's just going to be rushing for the backline here, and I'm pretty surprised by Should not going for the Bloodthirster. He's going to go for raw damage here, so he is eyeing onto the late game strategy for his team as well. I thought because of the frontline threat, he might need a little bit more survivability. Just again, he doesn't really have a tank on his team outside of the Volibear, so it is a very dire situation for him. And I think for PSG, what they've been doing with their pink boards is also really nice. They're dropping most of their pinks in the river itself, so the rate that they're replacing the pinks is actually a lot lower than CFO. They're basically forcing a vision tax onto CFO. They're getting a lot of these pinks down in their own river, and here we go. They get mission.
They find it on a mission. That's a good start. Meanwhile, Gemini, the rest of the team is a little bit split here, and he's going to go into stasis, but I think that could be a problem as he's forced to Stormbringer right into the flank of Bay, and as they're forced on different fights, a big knockup from Koala. Do they have the damage? The Shockwave is not quite enough to delete anybody off the map, and mission goes down. CFO running for the hills as Gemini is just out of steam, and so is Shun. They can't really get much done. Hanabi almost has the Narbar up, and Rest is going to be left for dead with 2 down. PSG aren't going to opt for the Baron just yet. Maybe they will, actually. I thought after that back it wouldn't be enough, but the teleport's on. They can take this one for free.
So nicely done by the side of PSG here. They throw in a sort of a feigned attack here by Kaiwing, bait the rest of the team to stay, and then Juhan outplays Mission super hard. He gets the Onslaught of Shadows just as his Shockwave is about to go down, cancels the crowd control, gets the Decimating Smash back onto Mission, basically sends him to his death. And, you know, I think CFO sort of overplayed their hands in this one. Their goals here should have been to draw PSG out and hurt them, beat them on the engage, but they actually overextend a little bit and open themselves up to the real deal. PSG just run into them, and watch Juhan right here as he outplays Mission. Mission tries to save with the Shockwave, but the pony runs straight for him, dodging out on the ultimate, gets the fear down, kills him instantly, and now it's the most fed member on CFO just down. Shun gets Hanabi straight on his face, flash for flash trade. They know the damage is gone, and they just chase him down.
Yeah, speaking of chasing him down, Juhan comes in to slow down Rest. He is going to be able to walk back to the relative safety of Tier 2, but things are just getting better and better here. Oh, maybe we turn it now as Kaiwing does go down. That was a mistake from the PSG support, but Unified's out scot-free.
Good engage here coming in from Koala. Does catch out onto the 2-man. PSG, in the meantime, they still get a lot of stuff done here. And, you know, the top wave, the bot lane is still pushing in. But that does mean Koala can rotate and help one of these 2 lanes down. So, at the very least, CFO do get 1 Baron buff down and keep them off their heels for just a second here. But all 3 of these towers seem to be going down.
Yeah, just little by little, PSG building those advantages for themselves, and just 1 more hit from the Baron-empowered cannons, all they need. Unified going to pick the gold up, meanwhile, Rest. Okay, the 2 junglers actually staring each other down in this choke point, but Rest is going to hold the line for now.
Yeah, and it gets really hard for CFO to play in this situation. PSG, even though they're not running a 1-3-1 comp, their side laners are fed enough to the point where they can just do this, and as a rule of thumb, in League of Legends, if you have the enemy, all 3 lanes are pushed up past your river, you're going to lose something on the map. Your best chance is to straight up engage in the mid 3v3, but that most likely means you're just going to be burning silent inhibitor tower. So I feel like for PSG, for CFO right now, their best bet is, you know, hold tight, give up on all of these outers, try to hold the base until the Baron buff goes down, and once the Baron buff goes down, you can look for that engage. That means that the threat from the side lanes just going completely haywire and taking up your 2 inhibitors, the risk of that goes down quite a lot, and then you can start to find your engages. But it's still 20 seconds on the clock, and you know, I think PSG should be able to take the bottom lane tower down just with the 4-1 quite easily.
Yeah, here they go, looking to set this up and rotate into the Mountain Soul. Juhan leading the charge, and CFO know that there's no chance to contest this. Down it goes. So, with only base left, PSG continue to push in. Gemini runs out of steam on the charge. A minute left until this mountain. And that would be pretty huge here. I don't know if CFO are in a position to try and counterfight it out. Been holding on to the teleports. Rest has his up in a few more moments.
Yeah, we don't have any flanking wards coming into the bottom side. PSG have so much vision to play with, and again, they do have the Realm Warp possibility to just go for that objective. So I think what CFO want to do is they want to continue to draw PSG onto the top side of the map and just kind of hold them out until there is a potential for a split match situation. That's probably their best play for now, but I think for PSG, the ease of execution is just so much. They can just push in and just switch over towards the Drake once it happens. If I'm CFO, I feel like I have to concede this Mountain Soul over to the side of CFO.
That feels bad, right? I mean, you never want to give it up unless it's like a super one that's just not very useful for the team taking it. But yeah, they're so far down that they really can't do much. I mean, this is just a 2-man Mountain Dragon between Juhan and Kaiwing, and I mean, sure, they can bring Unified and finish it off really easily, but they don't even really need to.
And CFO are nowhere to be seen on this one. They don't have any objectives to take, so they can't get any objective bounty gold back. And the best they can do is set up some measly vision here on the top side, but all of those wards that they just placed are likely to have been spotted by PSG on their paths there, so I do expect PSG to just be able to sweep in here. Very nice balancing of objective timers, always focusing on one point on the map. If you're the winning team, this is exactly how you want to set things up. You don't want split timers where the team can get back objective bounty gold. You want there to be only one focus on the map at a time, and you can see those wards really are not lasting much against PSG whatsoever.
PSG are flush with gold, too. They can just keep putting the wards down as much as they want. Anyways, it's a 10,000 gold lead here, and it's translated to a pretty big item edge as Koala looked like he was going for a play, didn't quite run in for it. But, yeah, again, I don't even know if it's fully advised. I mean, you look at what PSG are working with right now, just about every role. They've got themselves a full item lead and some change. We saw off that last back. You know, Bay picks up his Force of Nature. The Collector gets completed for Unified. It's going to be harder and harder for CFO to try and take this fight. Unified's a little bit close here, and he's going to go into the Feather Storm. That denies the engage. The teleport is going to be completed by Hanabi, and that means first tower going down. Narbar about to extend, and Rest does flash away from the big Gnar, but that's going to open up the inhibitor all the same.
Yep, base is already broken wide open. CFO, they can't really defend against this one. They're going to be pushed back to their own tower, and their main engage tool is also down. Without the quickness, their other combo that they have is Gemini plus the Shockwave. Unified does not have the Featherstorm anymore, so that might be where they go.
Koala! He just gets deleted in absolute chaos right now. CFO just do not have a chance as PSG pick them apart one by one. Mission running away from his own base, and he's just going to be felled in one big swoop. Rest is the last man standing, and PSG are going to close this game out right here in full control.
Oh, what a beautiful Realm Warp. I've never seen a Realm Warp where you send the AD carry to the back of the enemy team, but they were so fed that it doesn't matter. They can afford to get Unified as the closer in this one. Just send him right into the midst of mission, and he still survives, even picks up a couple kills here. PSG with just such a clean and dominating game one here. I have to say, I'm just not impressed with that Graves option. I feel like the Graves is probably the worst champion you want to execute a 4-1 for, because he provides absolutely nothing else if he doesn't win lane. He's it's not like a Camille where if you lose lane, you still have the engage. It's not like a Gangplank where you still have global pressure or anything. If Graves doesn't win, you just don't win.
And they definitely didn't. So, unfortunately, it was honestly not even close. There were a few moments when CFO managed to find a fight back, but they just seemed a little on different pages a lot of this game. And PSG Talon finding those moments, finding those openings. Not without a few mistakes themselves, but they were a lot more minor by comparison, and it was very clean. It was very clinical. This is what we expect from our defending champions, our top squad here in the PCS. And though they started in their last matchup with a loss up against Flying Oyster, they have definitely course-corrected ever since then, Clement, and I think that CFO are going to be the ones that are going to have to finding answers for this next pick and ban.
If I'm the coaching staff and I look at this game, there were a lot of, I think, stage jitters just off of the first game. It's been a while since CFO has taken to the stage. I would actually put those individual mistakes aside. The Shun just getting caught out twice and Koala getting caught out as well. But I think the big problem here for CFO is that they were not able to mount a single engage once they were down. That is, for me, the biggest problem of this game, and it showcases a real lack of coordination to be able to punish PSG here. And I think that is going to be the main point coming into the series as well. CFO, as we've seen, great players, but they just don't work together in the way that we want to. That's why they play the 4-1. It's much easier for them to kind of play with everyone spread out across. And I think they have to build their game 2 draft based off of that. They're not going to be able to out-engage the side of PSG, and they're most likely not going to be able to outright put Hanabi away. Hanabi's way too good on his blindside champions. Think about how many bans they threw top lane. It didn't matter for Hanabi. So they have to stay away from, I think, the Graves pick, and I think they have to all in more on Mission being more of an early game threat. I think that's how the series will shake up in the next few games.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the Ahri banned away, and this was by CFO. I assume if they pick blue side for this next game, it'll probably get banned opposite side. But I wonder, are we going to see Mission actually pick up this champion? I think the Galio and the Syndra are probably going to continue to be removed by PSG because they just recognize what Mission can do on those champions. The Syndra, obviously a big burst damage threat, but the way he plays Galio, the counter engage potential is there. Orianna, as we saw, can be played around a little more reliably. I really liked what Johan was doing on this Hecarim, the speedy build. He really was able to set up these engages, and you're right, there was never really that many opportunities, even with a very slippery composition, for CFO to try for the counter engage. The one play in the mid lane, I think that's maybe the one exception. But, yeah, it seemed like PSG really did their homework on this squad. I like what they were bringing as a 5v5 and honestly just playing well to their game plan. But for CFO, they are going to need to adapt. They are going to need to mix things up a little bit. And, yeah, no more Graves. Sorry, Rested. You played it a lot in the season, but maybe try something a bit different. I mean, you can try to 1v1 Hanabi until you're blue in the face, but he's still going to be fine. He knows how to play losing matchups. He knows how to play skill matchups. And it's hard to put him away without help.
Yeah, I think that is going to be the big issue here. Unless you have double winning solo lanes, I don't think a champion like Graves is worth picking on the side for CFO. PSG has already identified their win condition. Just don't let Mission have a tempo champ. They triple banned him in terms of champions that can actually get out ahead early. Syndra, Galio, and the Zoe all being taken off the board. So I do want to see... I do want to see CFO actually try for something that's super extreme in the early game. I think one of their best bets will be something like Ahri Viego or going for the Lee Sin LeBlanc straight off the bat. If they're willing to pull that trigger, I think it will catch PSG off guard. I don't think PSG have an answer for something like Lee Sin LeBlanc.
Yeah, I think that might be a good way to deal with it because, again, attack the mid-jungle. That is the newest 2 members. That is the 2 members who have been outplayed by your own mid-jungle. But in that game 1, as you mentioned, we can definitely set aside maybe some of the individual mistakes. I was more surprised to see those mistakes out of the side of Gemini because he kind of did just get outplayed in a number of situations early on, got set far behind. I do think the strategy that CFO were going for was going to rely on a lot of jungle attention, and he just could not give it. So, I mean, that's a huge risk in and of itself, but I was kind of shocked almost to see how poorly the early game went for Gemini. Turned it around a little bit, but it didn't matter in the end, and Kaiwing is the one to take the MVP. He certainly set up a number of those engages. It didn't look like he missed a dredge line once the laning phase ended.
The laning phase just went way too well for Kaiwing. I think that's absolutely ridiculous if you think about what happened. They actually won a straight-up 2v3 with a kill and a flash burn from the enemy AD carry. Then they pick off Shun again in the solo lane, and they take a tower, which frankly, they had no business taking. Like, the tower should not have been able to go down so early. It really freed his roams. And I do want to talk about his build a little bit as well. He is building the minion dematerializer just to get out of the lane a little bit early. And even with the lost skirmish in the mid side, they were able to just completely dominate. So once again, we've talked about this in pregame. The lane where we expect the most advantage to just be generated is still coming out from this bottom side. And
yeah, and I feel like that's dangerous. The only... Yeah. It's kind of the only lane that we really expect CFO's bot side to lose. I mean, yeah, like Shun's obviously been quite a hot rookie, but we've only seen so many games from this guy, and Koala definitely isn't quite at the same level as Kaiwing, despite them playing in the top flight here in the PCS and the LMS before it for about the same number of years. Kaiwing definitely has a bit more of a pedigree, and I think using that advantage where they do have the stronger mechanical duo is going to give them an edge, not to mention just the insane amount of synergy that those two have over the years.
We'll see what Shun and Koala can do to these 2 veterans in Game 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are going to be going to a break, and we'll be back for Game 2 right after this.